of the City of St. Pete Beach. Today is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. If you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott? Here. Commissioner Phillips?
Here.
Commissioner Resnicki? Here. Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Here.
Mayor Petrilla?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda as proposed?
Mayor, I would like to propose, and hopefully Commissioner Resnicki can hear us loud and clear, based on the amount of emails and calls I've received on the item 4A, the Don Cesar boat ramp analysis or alternatives, I would like to just move that to a discussion item and perhaps continue this to another meeting with the option of perhaps having like a town hall or something in between, because I think it's a lot of folks that feel like, not that this was done out of order, but that no public comment other than here tonight would be available. So I would propose if we could move that to maybe 5A or 5B, if that's amenable to the rest of to you and the rest of the commissioners.
I would still like to see the entire presentation so that we have it. I do agree that it seems like a town hall should be in order so that we can get some community input. Whether we leave it as an action item or a discussion item, I'm not sure that it matters.
I think if you move it to a discussion item, it establishes that you're not going to approve anything tonight, but you can still hear the full presentation, and then I think there might be some folks in the audience who want to speak on it as well, so they'd be able to do that as well.
Any further changes? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Yes, I'd like to move item 4A, or turn it into a discussion item for the Don Cesar boat ramp analysis.
So move 4A to 5B.
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Resnicki? Yes. Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, City Clerk, there's a note here. Action request motion to approve the March 12th. Sorry, I read the wrong date here. Do we have any audience comments?
We do.
General audience comments.
Gina Miuli? Gina Miuli? Teresa Shefstad?
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Teresa Shefstad, Paso Grill. Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me have some time. I just want to give a couple of suggestions, if I may, regarding the application process in general. The staff does an amazing job. They put together, nearly 1,000 pages.
Would you mind specifying which application process you're referring to?
For a CUP application.
For a conditional use application?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then planning has to wade through it. You all have to wade through it. And then there's the resolutions that get presented. This is just a sample. I'm not speaking to anyone specific, but that looks quite intimidating. And then there's a lot of discussion about rights, property rights. So I just have a suggestion. When I was trying to go through those 872 pages, I'm like, is there just one page of a summary of what the motions are? This is a page that's in one of the CUP applications, and I think there's a column missing. And the column sets the basis of what are the property rights in the comp plan. That's before there's any CUPs. And if it could be presented by staff to show what those rights are, it gives you a perspective of how far you're removing moving away from that and giving more and more under the cup. For instance, in one situation, the units are not to exceed 30 per acre, and yet the cup is presented with 75, more than twice as much. And I think just for a quick reader, whether it's planning committee or you, I think it's important to see the basis of what the rights are and then what the applicant is asking for. And then it's a domino effect, because then staff works on it and presents it and says, well, under the cup, they can get this max. And they give some conditions which aren't enough to mitigate the issues, and then it gets presented to you. So that's just a suggestion. Those numbers may not be right. It's just an example. And then if I could, there's some bullet points I wanted to suggest, thank you, in the process too, because again, the front end, it seems to be flawed and then things snowball. This is my perspective from an outsider.
Thank you.
So some of the bullet points, if they could be considered, is we do have wonderful people that work for the city, but I hear that, their staffing's not full and, experience levels are different. So when you're looking at these cups, does the city have the proper staffing and staff expertise for you to rely on? Because a lot of you said we're relying on staff. The next is, has the city received and considered the community input and done so on a timely basis? Are you getting those things from the developers? Are we getting them after the fact? Is the community not being represented? Is what the community saw, is what we saw in those first presentations, is that what you're seeing? Time's up. So I'll let you finish reading those bullet points, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have John Kurzman, a general comment.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
John Kurzman, be on the way, not speaking as a beach steward. So I'm speaking on the same trend. People should be made aware of all the exceptions to the ordinances, the various ordinances, when you're looking at a conditional use. And you should bear in mind that only Division 4 is about conditional use permits. For instance, Section 35 is about what a large resort district is, or a large resort. And I think I should draw attention, for instance, that in the definitions of a large resort, they talk about a large-scale development, which is 3 acres in size or greater. And they mention that because in the verbiage of the comprehensive plan, it talks about they looked at the size of the lots in the large resort district. So if you're to start changing the size of the lots, you would need to really revamp the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan is done with a map that's in mind. And so any change to the lot size would need to change the actual comprehensive plan itself. And so also in Section 35, 39, it talks about, the 10-foot sidewalks, it talks about street-level facades. And so if you just think back to your last cup, it talks about walls and how they need to be open. So you guys, when you were looking at the last plan, you were actually modifying not just conditional use, you were modifying Section 39, which is not part of conditional use, when you were starting to deal with walls. And so you need to be careful to I think, call out even the changes that are not making changes to conditional use, but making changes to other sections. But here is the maps that are set in the comprehensive plan. The maps are not set by applicants, they're not set by the staff, they're not set by the tax assessor. They're actually set by the comprehensive plan. And the large resort district is defined, and you can't see it here, but it shows every individual lot in the large resort district. So you don't get to combine lots, you don't get to call them, you don't get to merge them. Every lot is separate, and it has things in the comprehensive plan that say, if this lot is, if you're going to affect more than 3 acres, different things happen, different thresholds are met. So it's very important, we've discussed this at another meeting, to stick to that. And then also, beach access is per lot. So if you do something, it's per lot. And then also, continual construction, because you have to do continual construction per lot. So you need, when you do a conditional use, that your conditional use is a project in each lot. That you're going to start your project in that lot, that you're getting a conditional use, and you're going to continue with that. And you can't change that, because if you do, the other hotels will sue, and then you're going to all be whining that, gee, The court made us do it, and we're going to be double booked, and we're going to have multiple hotels. So we must stick to our comprehensive plan, be very careful, and not get ourselves in trouble. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those were the only general. Okay. Deborah Scheckner?
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Deborah Scheckner at Bocasiega Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. I have a few things I would like to talk about. So Bocasiega Isle, my community, we've lost our parking spots for the beach when Mr. Cezanne fenced in that lot that I guess he owns now. So the city may have to look to an alternative for us so that we have parking for the beach. I'd like to preserve McPherson Bayou, and I think District 1, you've had some experience with that area in the past, and to me it's pristine, it's beautiful, it's an animal habitat. Shocked that it hasn't been under environmental protection for our city, and I think it's something we need to look at. I talk to a lot of tourists, and they really like St. Pete Beach. They come here because they don't want Key West, Miami, or Clearwater, and certainly they don't want Panama City. And I think it's important for us to consider not only the residents when you're making decisions, but the tourists who love being here. Sometimes some of the families have been coming for 20, 25 years, yearly. To me, that is very amazing. And I will say every single one will tell me if they wanted Clearwater Beach, that's where they would go. They like our quaint, beautiful beach. The other thing, real quick too, is when someone is coming before you to present a resort, they are not allowed, and this is specific, to use Bellwether, Three Palms Point, or any of the other tall buildings that were here before we even had a comprehensive plan. That's stated. That's a city document that states that. Yet, each time council will say to you, well, you have the Bellwether, you have Three Palms Point, you have all of these other tall buildings. Well, yeah, that's because they've been there a very, very long time, before we had a comprehensive plan. Specifically tells you not to consider that, and yet, for some reason, council may not know better, but they bring those examples up every single time. I'd also like to say that we need to preserve our beautiful beach. And it was really busy today. I'm glad I left a little bit earlier. I never would have made it here on time. So traffic's already starting. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you. If you have a comment, if you have a general audience
We're
comment.
at Item 4A, we haven't come to yet. Thank you.
Yep. We'll call on you when we get to the specific items. Can I please have a motion for consent item 3A?
I'll move to approve consent item 3A.
Seconded.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Reznicki?
Yes.
Commissioner Lorenzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Filtz?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have action items. Item 4A has been moved to 5B. 4B is Bocasiega Drive construction. Mike Clark, where are you? Step forward. I assume it's you.
Yes, Mr. Clark. Mike Clark, Public Works Director. The Bocasiega Drive project dates back to 2021 in its concept, and is as close to a
complete streets project as the definition of a complete streets project kind of gets, which is modifying all aspects of the road system, the road network, to incorporate accommodations for the motoring public, for the pedestrian public, for bicyclists, landscaping, stormwater, utilities, all of those kinds of things. And so it's a neighborhood approach. A lot of the conversation at the two public hearings that were held centered around the school traffic, parents dropping their children off in the morning and retrieving them in the afternoon, and using Bogosiega as a speedway in order to do that. And so there was a great number of ideas thrown out on the table as to, well, okay, how do we prevent this from happening? And other than the installation of 3 new 3-way stop sign intersections, every other consideration was pretty much rejected out of hand. And what we ended up with is a road network that does calm traffic in a standard manner by reducing the lane width to 10 feet. That kind of gives you a little bit more of a feeling that you're in a smaller space, and so the tendency is for people to pay closer attention and drive slower when they do that. And then to install a share row in both directions, which is a bicycle signalization striping on the street, and there's rules about how that works. And then the addition of a 10-foot sidewalk as a pedestrian network connection. There is a partner project that you'll be seeing soon, the Gulf Winds Drive project. And so the sidewalk in both of these projects essentially connects pedestrian traffic capability all the way from the school at 87th Avenue through the 75th Avenue intersection here all the way to Gulf Winds Drive. It provides an alternative to getting out on Blind Pass Road or Gulf Boulevard itself. The project has a $1.5 million state FDOT grant in it. The process of bidding and approvals, all the permitting, everything is absolutely complete, and the project is before you this evening for approval for construction.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Mike, do you happen to have any, like cross-section or drawings or schematics or anything of roughly what that's going to look like, or has that been, or was that ever like the results of the design? Were those presented in any public forum?
The 30% design was presented to the public for comment, I believe, in June of 2021.
Okay.
The 100% design was presented to the public here in Chambers about a year or so ago, I believe. I'd have to check my notes here, but it was here, and it was the 100% design. Shortly after that meeting, after all the comments were incorporated, the design was posted on our city website and has been there for the past year. I do have with me the design that we can show up onto the screen if there's any particular aspect of the design that you would be interested in seeing to discuss.
I mean, if you have just kind of a sample cross-section showing, like from, west to east, like path, landscaping, bike lane, travel lane, bike lane, kind of what the...
Let me go with a landscape plan. There's 3 parts to the design. One is a landscape plan, one is the pavement marking for the street striping, and the other one is the very dense actual lines on the paper drawings that most folks have a hard time reading. But I do have one here that is very representative. Let's see here. Let's just go to the middle of the project. Say about 81st Avenue. It's pretty standard. 80th Avenue looks good too. Can we get the overhead, please? So what you see here, the curb on the east side of the road gets replaced, but its position does not change. The entire stormwater system is replaced. All of the reclaimed water laterals that have not already been replaced will be replaced. The street base gets removed and replaced and recompacted. The stormwater inlets are modified to align better with street profiles, the slope at the intersections to drain more properly. I believe there are 5 outfalls to the bay, and all 5 of those outfalls have tide check valves in them to prevent bay water flooding from scooting back up through the pipe onto Bogosiega Avenue, which we have seen several storms in the past year. The lanes are 10 feet wide, separated by a double yellow line. So we have a lane, double line, a lane. The north side, the curb line has been taken out, and for the majority of the length of the project, the curb line has been moved farther east, which gives us space behind the curb lane to the right-of-way to install the sidewalk and any other, as you can see here, some parallel parking and landscaping. So the entire length of the project is a 10-foot sidewalk. Landscaping runs throughout on both sides in some areas. The intersections, the radii of the intersections have all been brought into FDOT standards so that our standard visibility triangles are all improved for our site distances. And 3 three-way stops have been put in place to kind of continue to help slow things down. But this is very representative of the entire project.
And so compared to what's there, the northbound travel lane is going to basically stay where it is.
Yes.
The southbound travel lane is basically going to stay where it is, but it'll be moved over a little because the northbound lane is narrower.
Correct.
And then next to the southbound lane, will be a striped off bicycle lane?
No.
No. So the bicycles get pushed onto the 10-foot sidewalk?
Well, the bicyclists will have the share row striping so that there's a requirement for motorists and bicycles to share the road if they so choose to drive, bicyclists so choose to ride on the street. And they can choose to ride on the sidewalk if they want. But their rights change under Florida law, and Andrew, jump in here real quick if you want to. If you're a bicyclist on a road, then you're considered to be a motor vehicle equivalent. If you are a bicycle on a sidewalk, then you are considered to be a pedestrian equivalent, and the rules about encountering each apply.
Okay. And I mean, I realize I'm new in this position, and I know that there was 2 years of this stuff going on before me, but I've had a number of people in that neighborhood reach out to me that are going, why are we spending $5 million for something that none of us want? So, so I'm just trying to make sure everybody gets their questions answered. And so,
let's let him answer that question. 'Cause
Okay.
That's a valid question. You're not the only one who's received that question.
I mean, I guess maybe it's just a little bit of a history lesson for me. I mean, at what point was the design fully approved by the commission at some point a year or so ago, or was it just that the bid was put out for a design to be done and the design was done, and now we're approving the construction of the design, but the design's never really been talked about?
I'll have to defer to the city manager as to whether or not there's a requirement for the commission to actually approve a design before it goes out to bid.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any requirement for that, and that's why you typically have the public meetings, the 30% meeting, the 100% meeting that you referred to, that presents the proposed designs, so if there are any issues at that point in time, then we can direct, our consultants to go in the direction that is given to our staff and our design team. So I'm assuming that, the 30% design, the 100% design, people saw something similar to what you're showing here.
They saw exactly what we're showing here. And I
Okay.
personally walked your predecessors through it for over an hour, answering all of their questions, which now we have kind of like the same questions, which is fine.
But to answer your question, I don't think there's any, any requirement for the commission to approve the design itself. That's why you have those public input meetings.
Yeah, okay.
And in those two meetings, the majority of your predecessors did attend, including the mayor. I believe I saw all of them, maybe except for District 4. And so it's through those interactions, and anytime anybody has a question, reaching out directly so we can address that. Michelle Gonzalez at the time was heavily involved in analyzing how we do this traffic pedestrian bicycle interface. And my recollection is that the discussion amongst the residents, and it was both fairly well attended meetings, was back and forth on everything. At one point, we proposed cul-de-sacs, which would stop throughput traffic completely. And it was loved by some, and roundly rejected by others, and ultimately fell out of the design. Speed tables were presented and loved by some and roundly rejected by others, and ultimately fell out in favor of the three-way stop intersections being controlling devices for speeding. And so the comments about every aspect other than the stormwater of this project, many emotionally driven, many misunderstood, but all of them valid observations from the citizens on the street and others in other neighborhoods. There was no consensus, really. So this design really represents a middle of the road, so to speak, compromise between all of the competing interests that I heard for the past 2 years.
And the 10-foot sidewalk, was there ever a proposal for a narrower sidewalk, or 10-foot sidewalks are just what we do, so that's what we're doing, or?
Yes, when we were in the very beginning of this design, it was desirable for the city at the point as we were planning that if we could get a 10-foot sidewalk, then we would like to get that 10-foot sidewalk. And the number of reasons for, the number of reasons against kind of balance each other, but in favor of the 10-foot sidewalk, we have two couples walking side by side, dog, baby carriage, whatever, you pass comfortably. So nobody's shifting off into somebody's driveway, nobody's walking behind the other, you just pass by each other and exchange pleasantries and move on. Bicycles, if they do choose to be on the sidewalk, have the ability to ring ahead and move over and pass safely. It has good aspects, and then the negativity that I've heard is, oh my gosh, why are we building a 10-foot sidewalk without any real tail to that comment other than I don't like it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my concern about the 10-foot sidewalk is that we're taking, on that street, we're adding an extra 6 feet of impervious surface, and 2 blocks away, we're paying people to knock out their concrete in front of their house in the city right away and buying them trees. So it seems like we're a little bit at odds about what our goals are, from one street to the next. But
well, taking the project as its entire extent, we're actually removing about the equivalent of an entire travel lane. So the amount of impervious landscaping material is significantly increased. It's just hidden in all of the little buffers and all of the little landscaping areas.
Right. So we're adding some back and some buffers, and we're taking it out of.
Every block face
yards,
has
yeah.
some additional new landscaping. Yes.
Okay.
And in this project, because everybody has a unique front yard, so to speak, how do you account for my irrigation system, which has a plant here and a plant there. And so we just basically instructed the contractor to incorporate $1,000 per fronting property to manage irrigation and reconfigure the irrigation for the residents that have it, so that it functions to take care of the landscaping that we're going to be putting in.
And is that just irrigation for those people, or are we also replacing landscaping or moving landscaping, or if they have trees that are right at the edge of that spot that are going to get knocked down, they're just out of luck, or?
There are a few trees, maybe 3, 4 that I can remember, that will come down, and we talked personally with the property owners about restoration. In the landscaping plan, as I recall, there's about 30 new trees, 200 shrubs, 3,000 different smaller plants, and then 30,000, 40,000 square feet of new sod. And then the irrigation system for each property is restored in order to properly irrigate that landscaping. And then there's a 1-year warranty on all of that we'll manage.
Okay. So there will be more trees than there were before. It just won't necessarily be, people won't necessarily be keeping their own trees or getting to pick what goes in their front yard.
Well, when we get down to the one-each, we always talk to the property owner. There's a variety of trees that we selected one. But if there's a desire for another one, we're not going to get too worried about that. Florida landscaping, that's fine. The value is going to be insignificant in the project against, taking care of our citizens. But when we're taking out 3 trees and we're putting in 30, I'd say the net gain's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to defer to the city manager and to you, Mike. I mean, like I say, I'm coming into this late in the game. I definitely feel like there's a number of people who are probably rightly concerned that we're spending a whole lot of money on something that they're not real jazzed about. But there's probably 10 or 12 people that are super stoked about it and don't have any reason to write to me also. So if you guys are saying that you had public meetings and you feel like it was well attended, and absentee owners who have rentals were notified and know it's happening, and it's the best we can do, then
I have personally worked with the condominium association by the recreation center to a mutual satisfaction. Again, nothing's going to be the perfect solution. There are folks, citizens, well-meaning, that are unhappy with some aspects of this project, and there are other citizens who, like you said, are the silent few or many that are, yeah, hey, great, let's rock on, let's get this thing done. And so, as I recall these meetings, there was great conversation on both sides of every issue, and this project basically comes into the middle. And so it does leave some folks who are dissatisfied with some aspect or the other, and they'll come up with all of their just reasons why, and others are not here tonight because they're okay with it.
Yeah. And is there any, I mean, as construction happens and you start getting into the house by house, what is each individual house and each individual property owner's scenario? Is there, when that starts happening, is the contractor just going to be going, the city said this is what we're doing, so by God, this is what we're doing? Or is there any opportunity for a property owner to reach out to you or to the contractor and go, if you could make the sidewalk 6 inches narrower right here, it would fix all of my problems and all of your future problems with me? Like, is there any ability for people to do things like that, or is it just, this is what's happening?
In every project we do that touches a private property owner's property, we do exactly that. So our inspector will be out there every single day. He will probably meet every single permanent resident and anybody who happens to be walking by. And anybody that has a question or a concern about what the intent is or what we're going to do, or has an idea along your suggestion, we absolutely personalize along the property fronts. We did that in Paso Grill. all the way from 32nd Avenue to First. And we've done it in many, many other projects that we have worked on, and we will do it with this project. The citizens count. Their concerns about their property frontage matter. And we'll do everything that we can, short of something that we can't, to accommodate. So folks out there with brick driveways and things of that nature, no, your bricks don't get stolen and hauled away. Well, you do get a concrete apron, but we're not going to take your bricks and we'll line them back up again, as an example.
I have a couple of questions too. I know you get a chance. Can you hear me okay?
Yes?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mike, since you're up there, and I was glad to hear Commissioner Murray bring up one thing that I was going to ask. I know this design has been done, and obviously we were not on the dais when this started, but I have a couple of questions. One, what was the price estimate about 2 years ago for this project? Is it any different today? Was it at a $5 million price tag? Has it increased since 2 years ago? And on the pervious sidewalk, as well as street, and Mike, I know you've kind of talked, I know I've gone to some locations that you're looking into street that's kind of partial impervious, right, for stormwater drainage. And was that also considered for sidewalks as well as streets? Could that be integrated into this design? I think more of that discussion has happened maybe in this past year, but not sure if this idea is being incorporated into this design, as well as if the landscaping. I did see some of the species that are listed. For so many comments I've read from staff about increasing Florida native plants, is that going to be a push for this project as well?
Several questions in there. I'll try to get to them all. Let's see here. Using an impervious material for the sidewalk, and the definition basically is that if you were to pour a cup of water onto the sidewalk, the water would drain straight through it. It would not pond, pool, or puddle or run off. It would just go right through it. And the reason is because the material mix that is used is the fines are pulled out, creating voids, but we don't compromise by losing strength. And so the age-old discussion amongst public works directors is, well, that's great that you remove the fines to create the voids to have a pervious surface material, but that now has to be maintained, and that maintenance has to take place forever, which means we've got to buy a vacuum cleaner, which we do not have. And so that's the balance off on that one. The materials that we used out here in front of City Hall and on Bay Street and are planning to use on El Centro is an asphaltic pervious material. Same principle applies. The voids in the asphalt, or the fines in the asphalt, were extracted. The binder was strengthened, and that allows the porosity of the material to have the water flow straight through it. Highly successful, and because we do sweep streets, we have a lesser concern about using that material in small quantities. I would not want to pave an entire roadway out of that. But for the purposes of an inverted crown stormwater management street like Bay Street, it seems to be working very, very well. The landscaping was selected by a Florida registered landscaping architect on the staff of the design firm, so I'm going to have to defer off to them that they selected the appropriate landscaping materials. If anybody has a specific question about a plant name that's got 26 letters, all of them, no vowels, I'd be happy to pass it along. Let's see, so landscaping, pervious material, and was there a third question? The cost. So the project started in 2021. I think we might have been in maybe $3.5 million range. We kind of knew at that time in planning that that number was going to go up. How far up, we did not know. At that time, we also did not know about the state grant. And as subsequent budgets were passed, decisions were made, and we never budgeted fully for the amount that ended up being in the bid. But it's no surprise, I think, to anybody that we have cost escalation post-COVID, and with the situation that we have out there in the industry today. Our two bids came in very, very close to each other. And so I don't think that there's any disparity there. If the bids were $1.5 million apart, I'd be kind of scratching my head as to why. But because they were not, I think they're fairly consistent in their materials pricing.
What's the contingency set for this project?
I'm not sure if that was on the agenda memo.
What was the question?
What's the contingency set? If we I do not have the agenda memo in front of me. The agenda memo that we submitted for, as part of the packet. The funding section. Sitting on the desk.
I'll be up the back.
No, we didn't set it up. Whether that was separately budgeted for a contingency.
Oh.
We did not. It does not appear that we separately budgeted for a contingency.
Now, with all the, I know there's a lot going on that particular street. I mean, I see it often when I drive through there, when there's water, reclaimed water, breaks. I mean, I don't know how many I can count with more than one hand that are broken in less than a year down that street. So, I would foresee there's going to be issues as this is being constructed.
Once the street surface is taken off and we have a temporary surface on there of just compacted material, the reclaimed water laterals will be systematically replaced, every single one of them. And so that'll happen with the utility work. So as the stormwater pipes are going in, the inlets are being set, the curb lines are being set, the reclaimed water lateral lines are also being replaced. And so there's going to be a lot of excavation, a lot of digging, block by block. And to that point, I just want to also, that Commissioner Marriott kind of alluded to it also, and it's the personal touch. And so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that as we're digging along and, making holes in front of your house and all those kinds of things, yes, it's going to be interruptive, but you are always going to have a place to park. You will always be able to get into your driveway, except for when we're replacing it. The mail is going to be delivered, Amazon delivers, and you can order pizza. So all that takes place on a day-to-day basis. It's very fluid. It moves. I won't tell you that there's not going to be a hiccup out there in the course of a year and a half of construction, but by and large, we're pretty good at taking care of everybody's needs, making sure that we know who our disabled folks are and what their special needs are. We work with the fire department on those kinds of things also. So we pay particular attention to our citizens when we're doing something in front of their house.
Mr. Mayor, I've got three real quick ones that I think can afford you short answers. So it might help you out. A, is this a habitual problem road like Pass the Grill Way, flooding?
I believe the residents will tell you that it is beginning to flood more often than not.
Okay. The $5.4 million and then you said a $1.5 million matching grant. So is this really like a $7 million project, or are we subtracting 1.5 from the 5.4 million?
No, as you see the funding line up, that's precisely it.
That,
Which one?
which ones?
1.5 was not a matching grant.
Okay, so what are we paying?
4 million.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, so that the grand total less 1.5 is city.
okay, so we're paying 4.5-ish, okay. And then cost per mile, or whatever metric you use for doing these kind of things, I mean, it just seems really high to me, the price, but I'm not saying I'm against it. Is this kind of in line with what we typically do and we envision for the rest of the city at this kind of cost, or?
This is a little high because most road networks will not have the reclaimed water aspect to it, so that's $500,000 right there or so. And then we're installing tide check valves, but that's not a huge number. Cost escalations recently, it is a big number, yeah, but it is an approach that is consistent since I've been here with all of the roads that we've reconstructed. Passive Row, now this one, Gulf Winds next.
Thank you.
Just let me add one thing, that the stormwater component of this is 1.1 million just for the stormwater.
How, regarding the grant, how and when is that delivered to the city?
Well, the grant is approved, so it's cash sitting at the Florida Department of Transportation, and then we will draw against it percentage-wise as we complete the project through time.
Okay, thank you.
So I was at those community meetings, and the question that always comes up is, why are we doing more than what the residents are asking us, right? So the residents said, virtually all the ones I spoke to, I'm sure there's a few that either don't care or like it as it is, but overwhelmingly the comments were, why am I getting 10-foot sidewalks? Why are we narrowing the road? Why are we getting rid of the bike lanes? When all we ever want is, can you pave the road so that it's not so bad? I mean, that road is abysmal. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did a video about that road in particular, just on its own. That's how bad it is. So does it need to be redone, resurfaced? Do we need to reclaim water lines done? Absolutely. Right? There's no question about that. I do take objection to the 10-foot sidewalks. I think, Mr. Saunders, your predecessor had some kind of unhealthy obsession with 10-foot sidewalks. You can certainly understand them in Gulf Boulevard, where you have droves of people walking up and down, especially this time of the year, this week, next week, and so on. But that's not the same case on Boca Ciega Drive. At the last meeting, we talked extensively about property rights, and here we are, and while it is an easement that the city technically is entitled to, at the same time, there's 40, 50 homes, we're going to be taking a giant chunk of their sidewalk out. And for what purpose, I don't know. Because in my estimation, putting the bikes with the cars without a bike lane, that doesn't make it safer for either the cars or the bikes, certainly not the bicyclist. Putting the bicyclist on a shared road or a shared, walkway with the pedestrians, well, that doesn't make it any safer for the pedestrians or the bicyclist either. And, everything that I've heard from residents is, can you please pave the road because it's awful? Can you fix the reclaimed water? And can you patch our sidewalks the few spots that are necessary, rather than going in, tearing up everybody's driveway for an entire mile, taking 10 feet of everyone's property. And it was one property alone that I looked at that we're removing at least 3 or 4 mature trees. So when we're saying that we're removing 4 trees on the entire road, I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. So I'm not saying you're misrepresenting, but maybe don't remember the entirety of all of it, because I've seen single properties that exceed or match the amount that you said in the number of trees, that mature trees that we're removing. The other part is, $5.5 million, that's, 7% of our city's annual budget. You know, the question I have is, and I posed this question to the city manager is, if we just did what the residents asked us to do, repave the road, fix the sidewalks where necessary, leave the bike lanes alone, leave the width of the loader road, put stop signs if you need to, put in speed tables if you need to, what would that cost? I can't imagine it'll still be $5.5 million.
Do you wish to address the stormwater issues?
Well, that's being taken from the stormwater budget itself. So that's already allocated from the stormwater fund, right? And you mentioned that was $500,000?
1.5.
1.5? Okay. And that's allocated from the stormwater.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So again, if we just do paving and fix the things that we need to fix, what does that look like?
Well, that's a great question, Your Honor, and I would be a fool to try to answer that off the top of my head, but I won't argue that it would be less.
Right. Again, I was at those meetings, and I can tell you from having attended those meetings and looked at the individual plans overall, the plan didn't change any. I mean, minor tweaks here and there between 30 and 100%. And pretty much what we received from the consultant was what we told them that we wanted. Whoever it was at the time, whether it was Michelle or somebody else, said, here's the brief for what we want, and that's exactly what they gave us. We told them complete streets. They said, here's a complete street. They didn't go out and say, okay, well, what does the community want? No, they said, well, here's our brief, and based on this brief, we're going to give you exactly what you briefed us that you want to hear back from us. And they do this every single time, because if they didn't, we wouldn't hire them again, right? So I can't sit here in good conscience. One, nobody here has any renderings, so we're not even sure what we're approving, right? At the very least, that should have been included. I couldn't find them anywhere in the city website either, looking for them. I know that therefore Gulf Winds Drive, for example, trying to find all the 30%, 60, 90%, 100%. None of those were available. So I'm really apprehensive about making a $4 million decision here, $5.5 million decision here, without having all the details, first of all. Second of all, approving something that is such a vast number, and based on the resident feedback that we had, is nobody seems to want this project. And then the last part is, I have a serious concern here about the properties of the individuals that are going to be impacted, because there's going to be vast numbers. You know, there's a large number of homes that are going to be severely impacted in their driveways. And I've looked at some homes where once you take that 10 feet, there's not enough room left on the driveway to park a car. Now, you might get yourself a nice smart car and you can fit that in. Maybe you get yourself a golf cart like me, you can fit that. But your car can no longer fit on the driveway, right? So just because we can doesn't mean that we should.
Well, Your Honor, if I might, you know, I serve as the city's engineer, and there is no compelling reason that you have to approve this project tonight. And if there is compelling reason, and that's what I'm hearing, as you are hearing it from your constituents and my neighbors, that we would like to do a little bit of maneuvering on the west side of this project in terms of what the sidewalk looks like and how much the property take is and all of those kinds of things. I believe that that engineering solution is really not that complicated. I mentioned the stormwater in my question to you earlier because that does set a lot of the profile of the project. And it's very, very difficult to move stormwater. It is not very difficult to move the surface above it. And
What side is the stormwater on?
It largely is on the west side and then crosses to the east in outfall structures.
Okay. So if we were to leave the road width as is today, and
Well, let me jump in, please.
giving a hypothetical, right? Okay.
The roadway width is the only traffic calming measure that we have other than the 3 stop signs. But it doesn't mean that we can't go down that pathway. I just want to make that point.
Sure. I'm simply saying, if we leave the road width as is today, right? How does that impact the stormwater?
The stormwater in the design moved with the west curb line movement as we brought everything towards the east.
So if we didn't change it, then we wouldn't have to change the stormwater location?
We would be replacing a lot of it in situ.
Okay. Would that reduce the cost?
No, it probably would stay very close to the same because we're still digging the pipe up and putting new pipe in the ground. That pipe has seen its best days.
Okay.
And those inlets are equally as distressed.
Okay. And if we left the road at the current width, what would the bike lanes look like?
Well, if we would like to get a bike lane in and do it in a way that everybody that has contacted me is advocating for, which is separation of church and state, so to speak, by a hard physical structure, whether or not those are the little knockdown poles that you see some folks use, or an actual curb itself, or my favorite is an actual 3 to 4 foot wide median of planted material. The roadway width, my opinion, generally speaking, is that it probably could accommodate all of that. And if we would like to go back and do a little engineering, I love engineering.
Thank God for people like you. Yeah. Again, my concern is twofold. One, the design doesn't seem to be particularly popular. I've not received a single favorable response from anyone over the last year. And then the cost is immense.
Well, Your Honor, if you want to throw a challenge on the table for me to change that, to make it more likely that most of the people, if not all, would like a different design, and then we could drive that cost down by maybe $1 million, I would love to take that challenge on.
Where is the threshold for the DOT fund? Is there a threshold that says, if you don't do this, then you don't get the fund? If you don't spend this much, you don't get the funds?
Well, there's a couple of thresholds in there. You hit on both of them, actually. One is time. They give you money in a fiscal year that was appropriated for the expense in that fiscal year for the purpose of which it was appropriated for. And the other is the design itself, which is approved by the FDOT. They've been our partner all through the process. And we would go back and let them know that we would like to do a little bit more engineering. I hope that their response would be that sounds good. Let's talk about grant extensions, and let's talk about whether or not the additional design cost would be allowable to be used by that grant. Both items, I think, have been done in the past. So there's a little bit of, we've got to talk to the DOT about that. I don't think they would unjustly just rip the $1.5 million away from us, because I think what we would be asking of them is perfectly reasonable and makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Yeah, my question would be, is it in the realm of possibility if with an attempt to try to save money, taking more time to lose the $1.5 million grant?
It could come to that conversation where the amount of money we save would offset the loss of the grant, and then we just basically break even, and it'll be a city-funded project, which is the same as Gulf Winds Drive.
And is there a specific date, like, for that grant money?
The grant money has an expiration tag on it. I'm not exactly sure what it is.
I believe it's, I may be wrong on the month, but it's either May or June of next year. But it's not uncommon to get extensions or reallocations. Like Mr. Clark said, it's usually they budgeted in their fiscal year. But if it isn't used, it's, I know I've gotten extensions before or reappropriations for the next fiscal year. So I think there's probably a pretty good chance we could still get grant funds if we were not able to construct by the deadline of, I think it's June of next year. So I think the grant money or some grant money would be there for us.
That'd be my comment or concern on it. And then I guess my other question would be, if not a 10-foot sidewalk, which, by the way, I think there are some positives to a 10-foot sidewalk. But if not that, then what? What would the sidewalks look like? Would they be totally redone?
The reason for the 10-foot sidewalk is because they're removing the current bike lanes, and they're narrowing Boca Ciega in that design. And so they're reducing the width of the road, they're widening the sidewalk, and then by default, all the bikers are going to go off. That's what happens, right? It's just not, shared roads, whatever it is not safe. As an avid biker, I can tell you that the amount of accidents I've had on shared roads. In fact, the only time I've had accidents has been on shared roads. So that's the reason for the 10-foot side. The reason, the whole project width stays about the same. It's just that we're widening the sidewalks to the east, and then we're narrowing the east side of Boca Ciega Drive. The west curb stays the same.
The current sidewalks are about 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
Right.
There- yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but if we're not widening the sidewalk, then what are the plans for improving the sidewalk?
Well, if we didn't narrow the road, we wouldn't have to widen the sidewalks. The reason for the widening
I understand
is,
that,
yeah.
but what improvements would be made to the sidewalks? Like, I don't walk on that road personally too much, but on Gulf Winds Drive, that sidewalk's terrible. I mean, try walking a baby and a dog and your spouse and crossing another dog on that sidewalk. You know, so there's some positives to a 10-foot sidewalk, but I get the opposition to it, losing the bike lane. I get that too. But my question is, if you're putting in a 10-foot sidewalk, you're improving the surface of the sidewalk. So if that's not happening, then what would the improvements be to the sidewalk? Would it be completely torn up and repaved, still 4 feet wide?
Concrete is an interesting thing. You either replace it or you leave it alone. I mean, if it's broken, the only thing you can do with concrete is replace it. So if the sidewalk is in fairly decent shape for its age, and we don't mind having 4-foot sidewalks exactly where they are, then we would not touch it. If the sidewalk is significantly deteriorated, and we'd look at it and say, hey, this isn't going to last 10 years, then we pull the slabs up and replace the slabs in kind. The 10 feet can go to 6 feet. It could go to 5 feet. It can stay at 4 feet. If you look at neighborhood standards, I mean, we all grew up as kids in neighborhoods with or without sidewalks, but I would bet that in most residential neighborhoods back in the day, 50s and 60s and 70s, they're 4 feet. They're 4 feet in my neighborhood. They're 4 feet in most neighborhoods in the city where they exist. The idea for the 10-footer was driven, I think, in a large part by the folks who are advocating for it, because we're providing this connectivity and hoping that more folks would use it and stay off of Blind Pass and Gulf Way, Gulf Boulevard, because they have this nice pathway now all the way from 87th to Gulf Winds Drive. So it's that alternative mode of transportation throughput. But as the mayor points out, this is a neighborhood street that we are modifying, and so the voices of the neighbors that live there, as brought forth through you all, should drive the train.
And then my other question that you brought up before was, you mentioned if you, I forget the wording you used, but if you're a bicyclist on the road, different rules apply than if you're a bicyclist on the sidewalk?
My understanding of Florida law is that if you are a bicyclist on a street, you are considered a moving vehicle and you have to act as such.
Right.
If you are a bicyclist on a sidewalk, you are considered a pedestrian and you should act as such.
I get the part about being on the road, but I don't get the part about being a pedestrian on the sidewalk if you're...
It was a bit of a head scratcher for me too, but when I was, a couple of hours ago, I was just looking at Florida statute, and that's what it said on like 10 websites I hit.
Okay.
Andrew?
For sure on the streets, when you're on the street, you're basically a vehicle. You have to obey, go with traffic, not against traffic, stop at stop signs, stop at stoplights. Get back to you on the sidewalk issue. They're called sidewalks for a reason. Walk, you know, so.
I would be very much in favor of you know, pausing or redirecting or, you know, doing a little bit of a redesign. I think what the mayor said is very true, that, you know, there's a number of houses on that street where if you know, on the west side of the street with the current plan, I think most of them are going to have a sidewalk back as far as the city right-of-way goes into their yard, and I think that does limit a lot. I mean, I envision 8 months from now or a year and a half from now, all of a sudden the city code enforcement portal will be full of people getting code enforcement violations for the bumper of their truck hanging over the bike path. And that seems like a silly situation to create for ourselves. Along with, you know, I was out there the other day and there were landscaping trucks parked in the travel lane to get to houses on the east side of the street. And now the road's going to be even narrower. And you know, it seems like maybe not quite the right design for that exact neighborhood. And so if there is a way to do a little redesign, I think that would be pretty wise at this point while we still can.
I'm in line with you as well, Commissioner Marriott and the mayor. And I think I could suggest that maybe we're at the point where we either give them a redirect or maybe we start thinking about a motion here.
We haven't had audience comments yet.
That's a good point.
Let's do that. Mike, thank you. And then City Clerk, if there are any audience comments.
I would like to leave with one
You're
observation.
not leaving, you're just taking
leave
the
the
seat.
podium.
We'll call you back.
I think it's important to note that if we go back to engineering, then I will be bringing to you a task order for that cost.
Thank you, sir.
And it will be north of $100,000.
City Clerk, do we have any audience comments, please?
John Kurzman.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
John Kurzman, Bahia Underway. I won't beat a dead horse, but the e-bikes are illegal. Can you zoom in a bit more on that? E-bikes are illegal on the sidewalks in St. Pete Beach, so that's something to consider, even if you're pedaling them. I think that law should be changed, but we have to consider it. This is a study 20 years ago when people started thinking about sharrows, which I didn't even know what a sharrow was. When people said, oh, we're going to do a sharrow, I'm like, oh, we're going to have sharrow markings. So I don't know that everybody even realized that a sharrow was basically meaning the bikes were going to be on the regular lanes. And they said, you know, they've just learned that sharrows are ineffective at improving cyclist safety. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we still have Gulf winds coming down the road. And that whole project is sharrows too. This article just came out in 2023. It's been more than 20 years. It's an old idea that failed. But this is 81st Avenue up on the right. And then here's another view of it. And then I went into Google Earth. So the overall roadway is 30 feet wide. And if you put the two together, you can sort of see exactly what was happening. And it was basically an elimination of the bike lane. And, you know, if the goal was traffic calming, I don't want to be the guy calming traffic on my bike. That was sort of my message. And then here's over the Don Cesar, and you can see that, you know, cars mess up. And we try to get off of Gulf Boulevard when we can. And it's streets like Boca Ciega Drive and Gulf Winds that we seek refuge and ride our bikes on when we can. And so it's really important that we don't mess up and you know, keep us from that exclusive lane. And remember, there's a law that says, you know, you want to be 3 feet, cars need to be 3 feet from the bikes. And so having wide lanes is important, having wide bike lanes. I still think they should just get a wide can of paint, widen the bike lanes, and call it a day. If you want to narrow the car lanes, just widen the bike lanes and take that approach. The overarching issue should just be, you know, make sure you always have a 5-foot minimum bike lane. Or, I looked up Vision Zero, and Vision Zero, there's an actual article or a book on how you should do bike lanes with Vision Zero. And here's some suggestions. So there's some pictures in this book that came out of some of the creative ways you could do either two-directional bike lanes or one-directional bike lane. You maybe put them on one side, and these coexist with parked cars and with driveways and with people even, in wheelchairs being able to get across. So I think we've got a great opportunity moving forward, now that if you guys vote no, to come up with a new plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That was the only one for that item. Deborah Scheckner.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Deborah Scheckner, Bocasia Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. So I was on the Transportation Board for the county for several years. This was discussed back then. Bike lanes were very, very important in our discussion. And we even had a member who I believe headed a bicyclist organization because so many people were getting hurt in those lanes. So Safe Streets Pinellas, Vision Zero, Forward Pinellas. So for Forward Pinellas, they had 5 E's. Education, meetings and other things, engineering, enforcement, emergency response, and equity. Equity meant walkers, bicyclists, cars, public transportation should have a place in the road. You should never, ever take away bike lanes. That's not part of the plan. Bikes and pedestrians on a sidewalk is dangerous. And for the biker, it's really pretty uncomfortable because pretty much you have to walk your bicycle unless it's, very early in the morning. So if you have an RV and it's 8 feet wide or so, you'll have a foot on this side and a foot on this side to travel down that road. And I almost think a 10-foot road does not make sense at all. But I think that bike lanes are very important, and if you take away the bike lanes, and I think perhaps in other areas they're talking about taking away the bike lanes and putting in parking. No way does any of this go to Safe Streets Pinellas, nor does it go to Forward Pinellas, nor does it go to the spirit of what we talked about all those years ago, because it's very important to keep everybody safe. And let's get back to equity. Walkers and bicyclists, cars, public transportation. And you can also add scooters and a few other things in there that we didn't even think about back then as being something people would pick up and use. So I would say that we do need to re-engineer this, and pretty much going back to when we had Mr. Ray as our city manager and he had a meeting open up to the public, they didn't want the 10-foot sidewalks back then, so I don't know where all this is coming. They want safer streets, I will admit to that, and a safer place for the kids to walk. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all.
Thank you. So if we were to instruct the city staff to come back with redesign, we would need to be able to give them some direction as to what kind of redesign we have in mind, if that's the direction that we want to go. My initial thoughts would be something along the lines of maintaining the road width as is, with bike lanes, and the same with the sidewalk, is to maintain the width of the sidewalk. Maybe look at 5 feet, but really anything more than that wouldn't be necessary if we're not putting bikes on the sidewalk.
Could you clarify when you say maintain the road?
So right now, Mike, what is the width of the road right now of Bocasia Drive? Is it 30 feet?
I believe you're correct, but if I might, trying to engineer specifics on the dais might be a bit of a challenge. And the things that we don't know about what you're going to ask the engineering to do might pop up, and then we get all into a tangle. I think I understand the general direction of where the conversation has gone and where we've landed. I understand that the width of the sidewalk is a concern, and it's not 10 feet. I understand that we are desirable of a safe bicycling lane option in the roadway. I have some thoughts about how to pull all that together. So if you were to just give the staff some general direction as to incorporate these concepts of a smaller sidewalk, a bicycle lane addition, a safe mobility and micromobility, and traffic calming, then I think we can come back perhaps with a couple of general renderings that we might be able to review together, and then more specifically take the engineering from there.
I guess my question was, if the street is 30 feet wide and we're allocating 10 foot per directional travel, so per lane, that leaves us with 5 feet on either side for bike lanes. Is that within the range that DOT recommends for bicycle lanes?
I guess the best I can answer is that 5 feet sounds like it's reasonable. I don't know I think FDOT is 3, so certainly 5 is better. But there are as Mr. Kurtzman showed you, there are a lot of opportunities here about the configuration of that lane. Is it one on each side? Is it 2 on one side? Is it next to, one? Is the east side better than the west side? Is it protected in the manner that I described before, by a curb or by some pollards or by some landscaping? Having the right of way width as the paint palette allows us to bring you some ideas along the concepts that have been discussed tonight. And
Well,
it
I
gives
think
me a
part
little
of the
bit of time to
contention
think.
is the right-of-way.
The right-of-way width is 60 feet.
I understand. So that's why I'm trying to say, if we stay within the lanes, right, figuratively, can we do what seems to be the, can we do 2 lanes and 2 bike lanes within 30 feet so that we're not taking any more right-of-way?
Or I guess the other way to word the question would be to say that if you look at the westernmost boundary of the current sidewalk, if you took that to the eastern curb, is that enough space to do something reasonable with, so that we're not encroaching further into people's right-of-ways?
I think that statement is probably a very good guideline to go by. Do not encroach farther past the existing sidewalk into people's properties, and then use the existing roadway width to its best benefit. And then the rest of what's left between the sidewalk and the curb accommodates the utilities that we need to stuff in there. And so I like that, and I appreciate the roadway width, and that gives us some ability to bring you back a design concept that I think would get us really close, and then we can tweak it from there.
I've got 3 points on it. My biggest concern is the grant money and losing that if we take more time, or not getting all of it. So that's one of them, if that is even a possibility. The other is, by not doing the 10-foot sidewalks, are we not going to improve the sidewalks at all? That would be my other concern. And then the other point is the raised intersections on Gulf Boulevard north of 75th. In my opinion, I think those do a good job of slowing down traffic.
Old Gulf Boulevard is a unique street that those raised intersections seem to do what they've been designed to do. And I've driven up and down hundreds of times, and I never hit more than 15, 18 miles an hour. So can those come back? We can put them anywhere we want. It's just asphalt with some stormwater consideration. But I think with the 2 generalities that you have brought forth in a loosely worded set of guidelines, bring us back something along these lines. Don't go past the sidewalk. Use the roadway width for its purpose. And the sidewalk, I'm probably going to lean towards replacing the whole thing. A lot of the property owners forget is you get new driveway aprons, and that's a benefit for the property owners. But that's the connectivity to the street. My suggestion.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Thank you, Mike. Okay. So are we in favor of sending this back to city staff for redesign?
Yes.
Yep.
Mayor, just so
Mayor, I couldn't hear what you said.
I asked if we're in favor of sending this back to the city staff for redesign. Yes, city manager?
make sure I understand, I mean, I think we've heard very clearly the issues, and I think we've got good direction on that. And when you say come back with the redesign, I think probably
Or a concept?
what you
or-
mean is come back with some concepts of meeting those goals that we've heard tonight. We can certainly do it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Mayor, could I add one thing on that when they come back with the redesign?
Certainly.
Is it okay?
Go ahead.
Besides what the commission on the dais, everyone has been speaking to, when the design comes back, could we also have the comments, the majority comments of the meetings from the community that were done, so that we could have a clear understanding of what the majority of the people who live in that community, because I want to take into consideration the emails I just received, but we know there's been meetings. So what the majority of the residents in that area were looking at, was it traffic calming? Was it large, 10-foot sidewalks? Was it keep the same width now? Was it 2 bike lanes? Was it 1 bike lane? Like, just so that we have a good understanding of what the majority of the people who live there were looking for, plus the recommendations that we are all alluding to in this meeting.
If those comments are available, we can certainly provide them to you. I don't know what type of meeting that was in, so I don't know if we had written comment cards or if there were minutes that would capture that. But if those comments are available, we'll certainly make them available to the commission.
Certainly. And I mean, there's nothing preventing us from, dare I say, having another town hall meeting, to look at those, or just present them at a commission meeting and then have the public be able to
Okay.
send in comments. Okay, so for 4B, we are recommending that this go back to the city staff for a new design draft. Okay, thank you. Next, we have item 4C, 4th, 6th, and 7th Avenue Dune walkover replacements. Is this Mike again? I told you not to go far.
Hurricane Idalia ripped across the face of Paso Grill, as it did a lot of places, and took with it substantial damage to the walkovers. The walkovers were quickly demolished and removed as a public safety hazard. And as the FEMA inspection team has come in and done their inspections, done their due diligence, City Engineer Brett Warner is leading the effort on this one. We are approved to replace the walkovers at 3rd, 5th, and 7th Avenue. They will be pretty much straightforward, straight up, straight down, some steps or ramps depending on the slope, and the top of the walks will be 3 feet above the top of the dune by Florida Fish and Wildlife dune standards. This is a 75-25. 75% FEMA, 25% city match.
Thank you. Any questions for Mike?
Just a quick one. It's funny, when I look at the next item, it's only $61,000 and change to do an entire seawall at 1 Avenue. And then when you divide these 3 dune walkovers, it's about 60,000. And it just seems like this would be a lot easier and more economical job to put in pilings and woodwork, but I'm sure you got multiple bids, right?
Oh, we're not out to bid yet.
For the walkovers. It seems like it's a very high price, so you got multiple bids on that one, and
Well, we're not out to bid on this, on the crossovers.
oh, you didn't?
Oh, this is a FEMA approval.
Oh, so we're not paying this?
Yes.
Well, so we are using our job order contract, which is a design construct type of mechanism to speed things up. And so what you're seeing here tonight for the approval is the approval of that process.
For the process and the construction?
This is the approval for the construction of those at 183,000, which is about 60,000. I think the question is why would a crossover cost the same as the seawall, basically?
Well, the crossover is all wooden pilings. Pilings don't cost much to drill in. Wood deck's not that expensive, so there's no concrete here. So it's what, the material costs are what they are.
All right, I think you're missing my point, but that's okay.
I apologize.
All right, so we just went with a contract, somebody we always use to do this work. This didn't require multiple bids.
You want to explain the job order?
So the job order contract, it's a Pinellas County contract that is competitively bid, and they actually selected 4 vendors with a workload capacity of $4 million apiece. We have selected one of those 4 to piggyback off of Caldesi. We have worked with them multiple times in the past, and the process is they do the inspection of the work that we're asking them to do. They come up with the design. From the design, they come up with the construction cost, and from that, we move forward. And so the value of this methodology is we're probably saving 6 months of time instead of a design, bid, build, and we're saving money because we're not going to a full design with specifications in the bid package, because it's all integral to the same company.
And Mike, could you explain what they submit to you as far as their subs that they use, material they use, how y'all see those numbers?
Yes, we see those numbers and what's called it's a computer program called Gordian, and there are literally 20,000 different line items for vertical construction in this program. Everything down from bolts and nuts to piles to sidewalk to contract or concrete to asphalt to windows, doors, everything. And they're all bid on quantity. So if you want 20 piles 30 feet deep, then that pile has a price. And if you want to put a wood deck on that's 6 feet wide and 6 feet long, that quantity has a price. And so basically it's a building block based off of the design. You take the takeoff of the materials, the value of the contractor's efforts is inside that also, and that's how you come up with your construction number.
I got it, thank you.
So very similar to our large pipe contract for our sanitary sewer repairs. A stick of 20-foot pipe costs, 6 feet deep, costs X numbers of dollars. We don't have to negotiate that twice.
Thank you, Mike. Any further questions for Mike? City Clerk, do we have any audience comments?
Joan Kurzman.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
John Kurzman, be on the way. I actually would first like to talk as a beach steward. However, I'm not representing the other members because I have not spoken to the other beach stewards, but I'm speaking as a beach steward because the Beach Stewardship Committee is responsible for 2 things: ongoing beach nourishment, which is not about, and also preservation and maintenance of the public beaches, and make recommendations to the City Commission regarding these matters. And so in that regard, I just think I should speak, and one of the things that we are doing is formalizing that process. We're working with Mr. McConnell on trying to formalize that for going forward, where we would be, consulted on such matters. One of the things that I wanted to pass along is that we have had comments at prior meetings from people that they would like to see more handicapped access. And I noticed in this plan that there's steps on each end. And I just thought that maybe if there could be ramps on each end, that might be something that might be more accommodating. I'm not familiar with the ADA regulations, but I just thought that if there could be ramps, I also realized that, one end might be lower than the other. This might be, artistic license. It looks even at both ends. I also just couldn't tell from the specs, if this was an exact rendition or not, or, it's at 105 feet. And so I wasn't sure. I happened to have personally taken pictures in November of 2022 and, saw the heights of them at that point. Let me switch now, a minute and a half in, to now just speaking for myself. Speaking for myself, I just would like to say that, I see that after erosion, and I know it erodes a lot in this area, that there was a step down at the end. So my question would be, do we want to also specify that maybe at the far end, it should be buried into the sand a certain number of feet in anticipation of erosion that might occur? And then at the other end, this is another one of them, how far should it embed? And then the other thing I happen to notice is that these pilings are only being hammered in 5 feet. There's no footings or anything like that. And then piggybacking on what Commissioner Lorenzen said, as I think about that, this is a 105-foot long deck, 4 feet wide. Normally the expense in a deck is, you're getting your footings, concrete, footings, inspected and all that kind of thing. This is 5-foot pilings, 5-foot deep pilings. $60,000? I don't know, maybe you do want to go to bid? I mean, what's it really going to cost you to go to bid? I don't know. But anyway, that's whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That was the only one.
Okay. Ramps? Do we have,
It'd be a complete redesign.
do we have access?
We do have other access points.
Okay.
22nd.
Okay. Any further questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the price proposals under the Pinellas County Job Order Contracting contract with Caladisi Construction Company in the amount of $183,501 for 4th, 6th, and 7th Avenue dune walkover replacements.
I'll second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a
Vice
call.
Mayor Lorenzen,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Resnicki,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mike? Item 4D, 29th Avenue seawall.
The 29th Avenue seawall, I believe it's a 50-foot right-of-way that the city has, significant cap damage, significant erosion behind the seawall itself. The panels on the front of it all failed, and so we basically have a replacement. And it has been driven at the request of the citizen on Pasquarel Way, rightly so, because it has been overtopped in 3 of the last 3 hurricanes, and it has contributed to the flooding of Pasquarel Way significantly. It is not the only seawall on Pasquarel Way that was overtopped, but we have to start someplace, and this is as good a place as any. So this is one of our nicer projects. Looking forward to it, and it will definitely help as we move forward into the future of our flood protection.
Any questions for Mike? Do we have any audience comments?
I don't see any on this item.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the services agreement with Villa Forte Construction in the amount of $61,950 for 29th Avenue wall and cap replacement and extension.
I'll second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Resnicki,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have item 5A, discussion for possible commission dates in June, July, and August of this year. So we all have a,
Mayor, could I just make one quick point? I think we've got a lot of folks that have been sitting here waiting to talk about the what am I looking at here? The boat ramp. Any thought into doing that and then saving our business for last?
If somebody would like a motion to switch those two items?
I'd like to make a motion to switch 5A and 5B around.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Filtz,
Yes.
Commissioner Resnicki,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Mike, you're up. Boat ramp. It's been real quiet around the boat ramp this week.
The Don Cesar boat ramp has been on our radar screen as a flooding challenge for many years. And as we have been looking at that, it has specifically not been addressed in two previous Don Cesar neighborhood flood studies. And the reason is because of the uniqueness of that one particular location. It's a boat ramp, an active boat ramp, with some very challenging topographic aspects to it. And so, as we were looking at this, the Florida Boating Grant came up. And the way the Florida Boating Grant works is it's a three-step process in consecutive years. The first step is you ask yourself, is it feasible to build a boat ramp in a location? That's the question. Is it feasible? And then what are some of the aspects of that feasibility? If it is feasible and you like it, then we can request a grant for design for a boat ramp in that location. And then following the design, we request a construction grant to build the boat ramp. So it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. So we are in the first phase, feasibility study. And as we scoped the feasibility study with the state, we said we believe that we have two possible alternatives. One is the current location of the boat ramp, and two is at the turn of the Cabrillo Avenue road area there. A third alternative was to abandon the boat ramp. In all discussions that I was a part of, that was not very favorably received. A fourth alternative would be to somehow nest it up underneath or next to the Bayway Bridge system. The challenges there with accessibility are just were so much that I just thought, this is a stretch. So we kind of discarded that one. Another alternative was to double up at Egan Park. And the response was, well, what does that do for all of us down here at the south half of the city? You got two up at the north, so I got to spend an hour getting back to where I was to begin with. So no, I don't like that either. So the viability, the feasibility of these two locations kind of bubbled up and said, okay, here we are. As I look around the land perimeter of our island in the south, I'll be doggone if I can come up with another location, but if anybody else has one, I would love to know about it. But these are the two locations that were incorporated into the state grant study. You have in the package the feasibility. What does it kind of look like? How far out do we have to reach? What are the permits? What are the considerations environmentally? What are the considerations with utilities? What are the considerations with parking? What are the considerations with road egress? All the basic engineering considerations and environmental considerations are kind of touched and contained in the feasibility study. So the results are, yes, it is feasible to rebuild the boat ramp exactly where it is. And you have the challenges associated with that and the cost associated with that. And yes, it is feasible to put the boat ramp in the other location at the turn of the Cabrillo Avenue. And you have the same analysis of the utilities and the parking and the environmental considerations and all of that. And so as I read the report and I kind of take a look at our posture for defensive measures against future sea level rise and flooding, and the use of the adjacent areas and the connectivity around the East Maritana and the Don Cesar and Paso Grill, the road network, our sea level, our sea wall cap elevation of 5 feet, NABD 88. As I look to the future as to what's going to, what we got to do in there in order to protect our citizens from that flooding that's encroaching into the neighborhood, my staff recommendation is that we take a hard look at the Cabrillo Avenue location. The challenges associated with the existing location as we view future flood protection and the usage of a boat ramp and what it takes in the road network to do that, I think are significantly more difficult and quite frankly unnecessary. The Cabrillo Avenue ramp is much easier in the constructability, operability, maintainability realm, and the environmental considerations are almost exactly the same. So tonight before you, it's both locations are feasible. Which one do we believe is more advantageous for the city now and into the distant future? And as I have said, considering the challenges at the existing boat ramp location with protecting against future floods and tying into the rest of the neighborhood, I think the Cabrillo Avenue, from an operability, maintainability, constructability standpoint, is the better choice.
I didn't see I don't think they're labeled. It has looks like you've got both possible options with a cost estimate. One is almost $1 million, one's 1.25. Which one's which?
The more expensive one, I believe, is the existing location.
Yes, number one.
Let me check. I could be exactly wrong.
Am I not reading it correctly? Is that?
I think the 1.25 is the current location.
That's correct.
Okay, I might not.
Page 18.
Oh, I got it. Not seeing it.
And you look on page 18 of the feasibility, and it has the two listed there.
I was looking at 90 something. Yeah. Okay.
So on the left, the 1.25 is the Don Cesar ramp current location. And on the right-hand side is the alternative to Cabrillo location.
Why is it cheaper to just move the whole thing?
A lot of it, I think, has to do with the utilities and the elevations that we have to meet in the road network and the other stormwater aspects associated with it. The existing location has a tremendous amount of concrete, and that all has to come out in order to meet slope requirements for the boat launch and elevation requirements for flood protection. I mean, we're talking about a lot of concrete here.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the boat ramp moves, we don't have to take all that concrete out of the existing boat ramp?
If it does not move, as we move forward with what to do at that boat ramp location, we would be considering its removal and incorporation as a flood control structure. And so we well may not have to remove much or much at all of the concrete that currently exists. The elevations, we can modify those in a stormwater approach. We're heading to pump stations anyways in the distant future, and so I don't think that a lot of what currently exists would have to come out. We would just have to add more to it. And what that looks like, we would bring to you in a separate design all by itself.
I'd like to add one comment to that. We were talking about the difference in the cost there with the Don Cesar location being more expensive, but these cost estimates do not take in to account the cost, if we move it to Cabrillo, the cost of doing something there at where the old ramp, that would be an additional cost. It's not included in these figures, so you just need to keep that in mind.
Like building a seawall, demoing, all that type of thing.
Right.
Whatever you did, it would be an additional cost to.
And so the simplest thing to do would be to close the existing ramp and make it not usable so people aren't tempted for minimal cost, and then incorporate what it looks like for the future flood protection into a design by itself.
I've got a lot of questions and points to make, but if I understand what we've agreed on earlier, we're going to move this action item to a date to be determined, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm probably going to withhold all my
Pending a-
questions and.
Pending a community meeting, I think you
Exactly,
suggested.
so that's my proposal for, is probably to hold a town hall of some sort, and I think it might be a good thing to be a joint one with District 3 and District 4 commissioners, Commissioner Resnicki, if you're open to that idea. And that way we can kind of hear from both sides, because there's going to be two sides of opinions, absolutely, on this. I've already heard most of them, which is a good thing. So that's what I would recommend. And that way I'm not going to tie up with all my questions and thoughts tonight.
I have no engineering objection whatsoever. I would just remind you that we would set the entire program back 1 year, and we will take on
Understand.
another year of flooding.
On the other hand, that boat ramp's been there like 70 years, so.
It's not the boat ramp itself, it's what it allows the flooding to do for 1 more year.
No, I think we'll survive.
Can you explain what you mean by it sets the whole thing back by a year?
The grant window for the design phase, were you to make a decision today, is the 20th of this month.
What is the design window?
It closes on the 20th of March.
My understanding, yes,
But
mine.
my grant is available again next year, so I don't feel any pressure in trying to make this decision right now. I'm very passionate about this one. Even if this closes on March 20th, there is a possibility of next year having other funding, correct?
There's always a possibility, but you just left your neighborhood open for another year.
How much?
And the other thing, we're talking about 2 locations that are bad. When I read the study, it's telling you current location is bad and the other location is not as bad, but bad. So other than water, which is significant on both sides, that I've seen personally many times, there's issues on safety, there's issues on environmental, there's a lot of issues at this location along Casablanca and Cabrillo. So definitely I want there to be discussion on it, but many people don't understand how much this has impacted the subdivision overall for many years. This is not something that just happened this year or last year. As a resident in that particular neighborhood for quite some time, this has been going on for several years, way before that water threats analysis was done. Long time. Okay, I have years of when it was kind of conceived as a boat ramp, but not really. There's no history, nothing on file that indicates how this ever was approved to start with. So there's a lot of history that goes back. So I definitely want to have a discussion about this. And also having a design in another location. We're talking about 2 locations, but we're not looking as to whether we do want to have 2 ramps at Egan. That could have been a design that would have been presented. I know we're limited in land as far as location of where there could be another one, but when we look at our comprehensive plan, if I remember, and you can correct me, it's one ramp for every 5,000 population, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So currently having 1 means that we meet the comprehensive plan, correct?
Yes, our population is just less than 10,000, so currently, technically we would be meeting it right now with the 1 ramp, but as soon as we hit 10,000, then our comp plan says we should have 2.
Or you could look at that a different way.
Again, I would love to have a meeting with the community so the community can understand what's happening in that current location and the impact it has on the residents. I understand what's going on in people's comments from Pat's Grill, Vina Del Mar, who've used the ramp because of the proximity. But we have to take into consideration all the other reasons why this current location is not the best solution. When you read a study that says it's just bad, both in Cabrillo or the current location. Again, that's just part of what I would like to, I can go on for a long time about this. I'm not going to, because I would definitely not be motioning to approve something that doesn't make any sense. the study says it's not good.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Lorenzo makes a good point. You know, if we're going to move this to a town hall, there's really no point for us to keep going on here with questions and so on. I do think we should give people an opportunity if they want to speak now or wait till the town hall. It's up to you. But I think we should open up for audience comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
From an engineering perspective, I'm perfectly happy. I'm very glad to hear from everybody and get more feedback. And of course, as we're directed for a town hall meeting, we certainly look forward to that.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Do we want or need a motion to move this to a town hall?
So I think it's twofold. One is that you're going to defer this to a later date, not to be determined right now, but after holding a town hall meeting to discuss it.
Okay.
So did I hear we need a motion for that?
Sure.
Okay, I make a motion to...
I can't do it.
Okay, I'd love to hear you do it. I'll make a motion to defer this as an action item to a date to be determined.
Just as a point of order, we generally do audience comments first and then we do motions.
Thank you.
So I think if you're here and you want to speak, we have your card, and Ginny's going to call out your name. If you decide you don't want to speak, that's fine as well.
Martin LaFond?
I'm going to hold mine for the town meeting, thank you.
Jill LaFond?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for
If you'll
tonight.
please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Jill LaFond, 3200 Gulf Boulevard, Marina Bay Condominiums. Coming here tonight was really refreshing. I so appreciate this entire meeting tonight. The last time I stood up here, we were fighting to stop the bus stop that was going to be now where this boat ramp is proposed on Cabrillo Avenue. I just want to point out a couple things as to how we got here, and really, honestly, it's a mess. Betty, thank you to you too. I appreciate everything you said. The Stantec was hired sometime in February to do a feasibility study that Mike spoke about. There was a town hall in a District 4 town hall on July 12th, 2023. At that town hall, people came out to that meeting because this boat ramp was on the agenda, and people were fired up because they were talking about the possibility of it closing, it being moved, or it being fixed where it was. We were assured at that meeting, but don't worry, there's going to be lots of input. What we heard tonight was Egan Park was considered. There was no town hall on that. The closing, who had input? Mike seemed to say no one wanted it to be closed, but where was the town hall on that? So that's why y'all got so many emails from a lot of us in the past several days and even hours, because when the agenda packet came out, one of our residents saw it, it was like, wait, where did this come from? So procedurally, this was really a mess. And I'm just feel very relieved that it's going to be tabled, but I do think I would make a motion that we go back and look at all those things again, because really there was no town input on any of it. So thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. And just to clarify something, not for you, you're good. As far as the process goes, the way that the process was established was we're going to have a study. Based on the study, there will be recommendations that the commission can consider. I was surprised that we did not have a study with the information and then more resident input, but that's what we're doing now and just kind of resetting the process. But that was the purpose of the study, so that we can come back to the residents with something that has data, numbers, information that is, you know, not just, but actual based on data. So, thank you. Yes?
Omar Chacoin?
If you please state your name and address for the record.
Omar Chickwin, 3335 West Maritana Drive. I have some photos that I copied, and I'd like to distribute those to you if you would appreciate that.
Certainly.
You want to do that, ma'am? Do you want me? Okay. I want to begin by first thanking Mayor Petrilla for his contribution in cutting the exit time at the Don Cesar ramp from 11 p.m. to 10 p.m. Also, Commissioner Betty Woznicki, for her ongoing encouragement, without which I would not given up all hope. To the former commission for the unanimous vote in support, thank all of you. I want everyone to know that this simple act has made an impact in our lives in West Mediterranean Drive. Thank you very much. On the topic regarding the boat ramp in question, I have comments and encouragement. The ramp is dangerous. One season I saw no less than 5 vehicles sucked into the intercoastal waters. These just didn't slide to the bottom of the ramp. They drifted 50 to 75 yards out. One Saturday morning, a fellow backed up and went out to adjust the boat. There were 2 young kids in the truck, and the truck was perilously close to that break-loose point when the attached, now floating boat begins to lift the back of the truck, taking weight off the rear wheels. The father ignored my warnings. 2 little kids in that truck. So that's the purpose of the relatively new sign, of which I've given you a picture. Slippery indeed. The new policy of pressure washing the ramp makes it significantly safer, but the last time the washers showed up was on the day after a vehicle went underwater. This is a dangerous intersection.
Excuse me for a second, Omar. I'm sorry, we can't hear him. Whoever's speaking in the audience, I don't know who you are. Just take it outside, please. Thank you.
This is a dangerous intersection. Next picture shows a car driving on the left. No problem, another speeding vehicle runs the stop sign while quickly turning right. Now picture the kayakers in the intersection. I've given you a picture of the kayakers. Add the weekend rush as existing passenger vehicles cut across this intersection after sunset in a hurry to both beat the other traffic to get home quickly. Because of the daylight savings time, boarding the kayaks and these rushing vehicles will soon clash, and on more than just one night. Look for that to happen over the next 4 weeks. This ramp is a perfect storm. Give you a picture. When the prevailing winds prevent the waters of Tampa Bay from leaving at low tide, then as high tide approaches, this dangerous ramp virtually catapults the waters onto the road. We have 4 to 5 feet of seawater flowing like a speeding river down the street. At the very least, with a ramp built elsewhere at 90 degrees to the prevailing storm surge, perhaps the waters might be calmer and somewhat filtered by the grass, and I might not end up with jellyfish in my pool. You can see that picture. On a related note...
Thank you, sir.
Can I continue? No.
We all get 3 minutes. Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
sure we'll hear from you again at the town hall.
You will.
Thanks, Omar.
Ed Chima?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Ed Kima. I live in Don Cesar Place. And I'd like to say to this commission that anybody who can read knows that you guys have been under a lot of heat from a lot of different angles. And this boat ramp issue, I think, is an opportunity for you to do something great for the community. Betty's right. The study says one of the areas you're looking at sucks, and the other one sucks even more. So I don't know why we'd spend money to design something in a place that the study says is not a very good place. Mike Clark is right about one thing. He lives in Don Cesar Place, so he knows that the people in Don Cesar Place are crying every month about the water that invades their home. Nothing's worse, in my opinion. Nothing's worse. He's not right about another thing. Nobody ever asked the residents of Don Cesar Place about eliminating the boat ramp entirely. And Mr. Saunders, the census says the population of St. Pete Beach is 8,900 roughly. So you've got 1,100 people to go before you meet 10,000. So one boat ramp meets the comprehensive plan. If you voted to support people in other communities to allow them to take their boat, dump it off, have a nice day out on the Gulf, and come back, versus supporting the people that pay the taxes here and live in a place that's underwater for several days a year, you would really be doing a big disservice to this community. Last but not least, you could save a lot of money by closing down the two locations, or the one location and the proposed location, and spend the money to mitigate the flooding in a neighborhood that's been periled with this, and not much has been done about it. That's all I got.
Thank you. Sorry,
Kevin Hughes?
there will be no more clapping. Thank you. You all think the sheriff's here for no reason at all?
Controlling the rowdies. Kevin
Please
Hughes,
state your name and-
3211 Gulf. My family's had the dock north of the proposed Cabrillo location since the 50s. The current dock's built to accommodate a 90-footer, but we've had boats ranging from 53 to 70 feet in that dock for pretty much forever. The Cabrillo location is a hazard to navigation for me. You're sticking it out 80 feet into the water. Now there's only 80 feet between the end of that dock and my first tide pole. Yeah, that just makes it either impractical to dangerous to dock or cast off a decent-sized vessel out of that dock. Yeah, and one of the discussions was riparian rights. Well, that's ingress and egress to navigable waters, and that thing would cut off my access to that dock for anything, any reasonable sized boat. On commercial activity, the kayak business is generating traffic and noise after normal hours. Yes, you've addressed it, and my neighborhood has complained about that at every general meeting of our association. There's also been a lot of use of the ramp for commercial barge construction traffic. That's not appropriate for a residential neighborhood. It's an RM zone. I don't even know how they're permitted to be there in the first place. Moving the ramp, moving the ramp to Cabrillo gives those problems to other people. It doesn't solve them. Now, parking. Reading the study, the requirements in that report are arbitrary suggestions and no studied an actual basis in fact. Over the past couple of years, there's only really been one holiday weekend where the existing trailer parking was inadequate. The report's calling for more, but the existing parking is underused 90% of the time. Dunces are places problems with unlawful use of our beach were helped out, the issue was helped out when a substantial number of car parking spaces were converted to boat trailer parking. Adding more unused trailer parking is just going to encourage cars to park illegally and unlawfully access our beach. That elevated ramp design effectively will create a dam at the south end of Cabrillo, and could make it impassable during tropical events. That's the only alternative Gulf Boulevard's blocked by an accident. The stormwater redesign of Gulf Boulevard didn't improve Gulf Boulevard, so I don't have much faith in proper mitigation of flooding from this ramp. Well, the other part of it was addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mark Rashal?
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Rashal. I'm representing Audubon, Florida, which owns the Miller Family Bird Sanctuary in McPherson Bayou, and we're based in Tampa. So I appreciate the commissioners and mayor having public comment on this issue. I know this discussion will be tabled and be part of more of a wider public comment, and I just want to say that myself and Audubon, Florida is here for any information. I know that folks have cited the bird sanctuaries as one of the reasons not to have, an expansion or movement of the boat ramp, and I just like to say that we'll be there to provide that input. That island is one of the more important bird colonies within Boca Ciega Bay, and that includes the National Wildlife Refuges to the south, which no longer support the large bird colonies that they did in the past. And so it is a property that was donated in 2012 to the Audubon Society that we've maintained many years before that, managed and surveyed, and we continue to do so. So I just want to say that we're a resource for that information and can help in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deb Scheckner? John Kurzman?
From Bahia Honda Way South, John Kurzman. Can I have my slides zoomed in and start the clock? Can you zoom in and then start the clock, please? Can you start the clock? Thank you. It was discussed, but I prepared these slides earlier. The relocating the boat ramp, it being one alternative, and the other alternative, keeping it there, is interesting to note. Betty will recognize this slide. I did a search on the ramp and noticed a petition she had done, Commissioner Wisniewski, of the spillways, and it looks a lot like the ramp on a lot of occasions, where the water level just goes up too high. And so when you do the ramp relocate, really that alternative is not just a case of relocating the ramp. You're not relocating the ramp, you're making a new ramp. And as Mr. Sanders mentioned, you actually have to now decommission the old ramp. And so that alternative needs to include that cost. So before you can really do a town hall, I think, or before you can really weigh the alternative, you need to include the cost of what you're going to do to the old ramp in association with that alternative. So one alternative is to redo alternative one, which is the Don Cesar ramp. The other alternative is to make a new ramp at the other location and then repair the Don Cesar ramp to no longer be a ramp and be a seawall. And the reason I say it like that is because here is the Don Cesar ramp if it was redone, and then here's what they would have done to the roadway if they redid it. They're going to raise the roadway. Now, some of that is for the curvature and the roadway, but as we've seen, these projects aren't just raise a seawall and make a moat, you have to do more. So, what's really going to be involved? What would the cost be for that decision? And then here's the other ramp and what they would do if they made the new one. I mean, I'm not going to even weigh in on what it would be. I'm a boater. I don't live there. I know the people that are there are suffering. They have a flooding issue. I sympathize with that. If I had to choose between the one-way or the two-way, I'd say the one-way is more efficient, help get the noise down and get boats in and out of there. For the parking, it said the alternative two, they didn't have enough parking. Then, maybe just, since the two spots are close enough to each other, use the parking, save some of the parking spots from the existing ramp area and assign them, keep them around for the first one. But then again, the drainage is the big issue and, solve the drainage costs and those issues. So thank you very much. And again, I'm saying that now because I think it's important to figure that out before, you do more decisions. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ken Folsom?
Oh, I guess my time's up, so just in my last couple seconds. It's really hard.
We can't hear you if you.
It's really difficult for people from Passive Grill and Don Cesar, especially with all the construction we'll be doing, to get their boats and their trailers all the way to Egan Park. So that's a consideration to think about also. It's a long way, especially with,
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name's Ken Folsom. I live at 3508 Casablanca. I've lived there for 33 years. If you go out to my mailbox and look directly right, you look straight at the boat ramp. So I've had a bird's eye view for a very long time. Through the years, I've seen everything from a rescue helicopter stopping right there to pick up someone who's been injured and come in on the boat ramp. Seen numerous fist fights, lots of arrests, and sadly several deaths. I'm not going to go into the comments that I had prepared, mostly because they've already been stated, and only to say that I agree with all of them. But when we talked about getting more information and statistics, we talked primarily from an engineering standpoint, or also traffic flow and things of this nature, but we neglected to talk about the user profiles. So I don't know, and I think that would be extremely useful to understand. because I do not know what the percentage of people using that ramp come from, whether they're city residents or outside or residents of Pinellas County. I would based upon just my observation, I would say they're probably outside of the city. I do not know what percent. If it's a very high percent, perhaps that sheds a different light on the decisions that we need to make. I do know that several businesses use that ramp or have used that, and in talking to some staff at the city, I know that that's a trend in Florida in general. So we need to take that into consideration. As I've said many times in front of this commission, working as an elected official in a town such as St. Pete Beach requires that you balance both it's a constant balancing act between the residents' concerns and the outside interest. We're obviously an economic engine for the county, et cetera. But the mayor's right when he always says, you know, the line is this good for St. Pete Beach or not? Is it good for the residents or not? And I think that if we have a little bit more information in terms of who's using it, that would help to illuminate some of the discussions.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get with the city clerk and schedule a town hall. While I appreciate that this belt ramp lives in a specific neighborhood, this is a citywide issue that will have impact on more than just the residents from that neighborhood. So I think it is important that it's not just a District 3 and 4 town hall, but rather a citywide town hall at City Hall or at the community center or someplace where everyone from the community can come in and contribute and comment and provide feedback. So would you like to make a motion that we instruct the city clerk to schedule a town hall?
Yes, I would. I'd like to make a motion for the city clerk to work with us for a date to schedule a town hall. That sounds like it needs to be a fairly large place.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
City clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Reznicki,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Filtz.
Yes.
Mayor Petrella.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we are at 5A, discussion for possible commission dates for the summer months, June, July, and August. You have before you two sheets of paper. One has the current city commission dates, and then the other one has the itemized availability for the commissioners. I think what we had discussed, excuse me, if you'll please take your conversations outside, thank you. I think what we had discussed last year with Amber was looking at kind of squeezing the summer commission meetings to the front end and to the back end. So maybe too early July and then too late August. That was kind of the discussion that we had. The thought of it was the schedules and the activity seems to be rather light during the summer months. And also to be able to afford the commission kind of a quasi-summer break by putting two, because we have to have 2 commission meetings per month, but we could have 2 commission meetings in the first week of July and then 2 towards the end of August, for example. And if anything urgent came up, we could always call a special meeting as well, somewhere in the middle of that, if necessary. So if the city manager, city attorney, or city clerk had something urgent that popped up, with some notice, hopefully we can get 3 people together.
Just one thing we need to keep in mind is the budget process. July is usually a big month to have the commission involved in the budget process. The property appraiser delivers to the city the preliminary taxable values on July the 1st. Before that, of course, we'll be meeting with the commission to discuss budget priorities and working on preliminary budgets. But on July 1, when we get those taxable values, then we have to make adjustments to the budget. And typically, and I'm looking at our schedule here that we've been working on as a tentative schedule to meet certain dates, but usually around the end of the first week of July is when the commission would get that revised budget that reflects the new taxable values. It goes to the Budget and Finance Committee, the first part of July. And typically there would be a couple of more, at least one or two more budget workshops toward the end of July, because on August the 4th is when the City Commission has to send to the property appraiser your proposed millage rate. So there has to be a meeting there at the end of July to establish that proposed millage rate that we send out in the trim notices, or that the property tax collector sends out. So July is a very important month in the budget process that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at these meetings.
I'll be here the entire summer, so any day is good by me so far, but so if anybody has any recommendations.
One of the things, as everybody knows, if they don't, I'll publicly state it again, I'm only going to serve until the new, whoever's elected to take my seat for District 4. So I will be traveling considerably. So my intent is to try and do as much as I can via Zoom. I didn't know we could vote via Zoom. I don't know if we ever covered that, but at least I can participate. So my intent is to not cause a special election. I think that's the last thing the city needs, is to spend a bunch of money just for one commissioner. So if there's a way, so I'm willing to do whatever I need to do, but I'm probably going to miss one or two. I think we can miss 3, but they'll be toward the tail end. And my other intent is to get at least one in August, scheduled in late August, so whoever takes my seat has time, at least a week, to catch their breath and be around for that last meeting in August.
Yeah, the election is scheduled before that last meeting, so.
20th, right? Yeah.
Thoughts, comments?
The current commission dates through August, I'm good with as of right now. If we were to change them, I will be unavailable August 14th through the 19th.
Which is one meeting, so. Actually, no, that's between the meetings.
Yeah, it would be, yeah. It's
okay. So, I mean, if that's the case, do we even need to look at making any changes to the dates?
Mayor, there was only one date, and I looked at the spreadsheet that the city clerk sent us so that I could kind of see where everybody was at. It looks like the only date that I had previously said was June 25th, that I wouldn't be available. All other dates that are on the 2024 meeting are good with me, and I don't think they conflict with anybody according to what the table says. And if Commissioner Lorenzen just needed the possibility of being able to go virtual, I think we would be good.
I'm good for all of May and June. The only one I would, I'm sorry. So I'm good for May and June. The only one I'd see July 9th would probably be impossible for me to get a connection, because I'll be way out in the weeds of Nova Scotia in a national park. But you could still have 4 folks. So I don't want to hijack that.
Okay. So are we good with leaving the dates as is?
Let's see, 23rd.
If you're all good with me not being in on the 25th.
Yeah, June.
Okay, so we'll just leave it easy and leave the dates as is. Okay.
And Mayor, are you going to appear virtually on the first meeting in May?
Yes.
Could I just ask a question? Have we clarified that we can vote via telecommunications or Zoom? I thought that was an open item.
So the answer is yes. You have to make sure that you have all the materials with you in front of you. You have reviewed them. This should not be used as a matter of convenience. It has to be used as more of an exception than the rule. I would prefer that it not happen during any type of quasi-judicial hearing, just simply because of due process reasons that I think that it could put the city at risk. But generally, most city business, I think the Attorney General opinions are that while they go back a ways, they're a little outdated, but using electronic means to participate, as long as you're not using it to create a quorum, you have to have a physical quorum or else you can't do it.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, next we move on to item 6. Reports, City Clerk,
I do not.
City Manager.
A couple of quick things. I just want to remind everyone that we do have a workshop scheduled prior to the next meeting, the 26th, 4 p.m. I believe Rita had contacted all of you about availability on that. The search firm for the city manager position will be here to discuss with you where they are in the search at that point. The closing date for applications was yesterday. I was told a couple of days ago that they had, I think, 75 applications, and they're going through that. So just remember that. I just want to remind you of that workshop. They'll be here to discuss what they have and how we'll be moving forward from that. Also, and I think I've spoken with all of you individually, but just to remind you, we've had another discussion with the firm that was selected to do the comp plan review. After meeting with them, we determined we're going to need to come back to the commission to discuss the scope. The original scope that was set out for a consultant was very general. It's basically stated a review of the comp plan. And at the meeting when they were selected, the commission narrowed that scope to look at the large resort district, the Quarry Avenue, and also economic impact. So that changes the scope, which we'll need to bring back to y'all. Also, there was a component in there that required the city staff to do a lot of work, which we simply do not have the staff or the time to do that. So we're working with the consultant now to bring that scope back to y'all very quickly. Some of the preliminary things are already being done, but we'll have that back to you very quickly. We actually talked with them again yesterday, so we think we'll have that in a matter of a few days. I believe that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Wayne. City Attorney.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. One quick request. Today I did receive a written settlement proposal with regard to the Red, White, and Booze CUP application challenge. It still needs some massaging, but I would like, as seeing your schedules rapidly fill up, I'd like to go ahead and, per statute 286.011, subparagraph 8, exercise my right to formally request a private meeting with you all to discuss that settlement, get it on the books, and I'm looking at April 9th, which is 2 meetings now. So I know that you've got a workshop in 2 weeks. I don't want to crowd your schedule, but if we can get an hour before the meeting on the 9th at 5 o'clock, it would be myself, Matthew, and Bill Welchreck, the defense attorney, hopefully. And if for some reason I can't get the settlement discussion in a better format, a better, more appetizing, I guess, you know, or something happens, and we'll just cancel that meeting. But I'm going to continue to work with them on it. But I do have something in writing, so therefore I want to present it to you all.
Thank you.
Sorry, what was the date?
9th?
Okay, thank you.
April 9th.
April 9th, yeah,
Right.
sorry.
Any objections to 5 p.m. on April 9th?
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Get it all done in one day.
Yeah, so we'll put together the agenda and the notice and get it, and work with the clerk's office to make sure everything's done correctly
Thank you.
on our end. Thank you for that, appreciate it, that's all.
District 4?
Yeah, thank you. If anybody's listening out there in D4 land, again, I am not running for reelection. I stated that when I volunteered for the appointment. So please talk to each other. We really need some folks to come forward. The more the merrier, in my opinion. I believe there's a deadline in April and then one in May. I think they have to buy some kind of packet, and they also have to fill out an application for the August 20th election.
Yes,
So-
it's on our website.
Okay, so please pay attention to that. It's coming up quick. It's next month. As far as the garbage pickup, thanks to the city staff and Jennifer and your crew for getting at least those couple of alleys open. And as Murphy's Law would have it, boom, we tore up all the alleys and put in the water lines. So it's going to be at least another couple of weeks before they can actually take the garbage out to the alley again. And just a reminder, anybody in District 4, my meet and greet is still the first and third Wednesday of each month at Hurley Park. And I'm also trying to disseminate District 4 specific news through the Passagrill and Vina Del Mar Community Associations. They have an email chain, so I found that to be a good way to get information out. Thank you, Mayor.
District 3?
No, nothing at the moment.
Thank you. District 2?
Yeah, so I have filled the vacancy for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Scott Subert had to step down. Grant Izzy will be replacing him. Grant served, he's retired colonel in the Air Force. He served 39 years, moved to St. Pete Beach about 3 years ago. So that's one update. And then what else? That's it for now. Yep.
Thank you. District 1?
Nothing, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.